I'm so excited to have this particular conversation because if you've been following me for a while, then this won't be news to you that I'm a dominatrix. If you're new here and you have no idea what a dominatrix is, and you've only been exposed to ideas that you've seen perpetuated in films, in magazines, and in popular media, then you probably have a misconception of what a dominatrix is. You might even think someone like me wouldn't do something like that because the images you're used to most definitely involve leather, whips, black lipstick, sadistic energy, and of course, lots of violence. And this is why I'm so excited to have this conversation because I want to challenge so many things about what you may think about dominatrix type women like myself. When I first used to put out ideas that would allude to this particular lifestyle, I used to get a lot of pushback on the internet. Pushback from people who see this kind of lifestyle or line of thinking as dangerous or as cold. And it used to make me laugh because whilst I would be dealing with that kind of pushback, I would be witnessing women on my Twitter timelines talking about, men that have paid off their bills for the rest of the year and discussing trips they've been on and even showing receipts, screenshots, and all these details about tributes they've received from men who are either buying things from their wish lists and men who are sending them money with a note that says, "Thank you, goddess." And when I would first see this, I would think, what is going on here? What in the mind bending magicianry is happening in these streets? So I thought I would investigate. And how my investigation began would be me simply following these women on Twitter. Majority of these women are sex workers, want to make that very clear. And I would observe the way that they interact with some of the men who approach them. I would pay attention to how they carry themselves. I would also be closely following the way that they have intra-communal conversations about the lifestyle. And the one thing I took away from it was that we are all so similar. We're all women who have decided that we want more for our lives, and we have put that decision into action by only demanding the kind of treatment that we envision ourselves receiving, being adoration, being treated well and taken care of. And sometimes it might involve some kinky play, other times it might not. But the ultimate epicenter of this ideology is understanding that women are deserving of this treatment. And so when you think about the ways that people have misinterpreted this lifestyle, it often aligns with the ways that we demonize women who know how to stand in their power. When we think about the more ancient times, we remember women being burnt for being witches. And when these women were accused of being witches, it was because they simply knew how to use their power. Amongst the women that were burnt as witches, of course, there were those who were actually carrying out spells and creating healing in ways that were magical. But other women who were seen as disobedient and strong enough to stand in their will would also be grouped amongst those women and cast away in society. And we still see that happening. And this is why I am of the strong belief that this conversation is incredibly important, because there are elements that you can take from this lifestyle and introduce to your, whether you call it vanilla lifestyle, whether you just call it your lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, there are elements you can take from this, because I think femdom, which is feminine domination, the idea that a woman is more powerful, that femdom is basically just a name for a lifestyle that most women live without even identifying as a femdom. And that for me is where I feel like I sit. On paper, I would describe myself as a dominatrix, but I don't, walk around in leather with a man on a leash, unless he wants me to. But I don't walk around in leather with a man on a leash, okay, and just being like, give me money now, or, go face the wall and kneel down and repeat to yourself that you have messed up. I don't really do that unless that's part of the scene we have mutually created. But in my day-to-day life, and when I come across men who I fancy, who I'm drawn to, I like to litmus test from very early on to see if they have an inclination towards the lifestyle. These men don't even have to describe themselves as subs. These men don't even need to know what it means to be a sub. They just need to be ready to adore me, because that's usually where it starts. So you might be wondering, well, how do you litmus test these guys? How do you drop it in the conversation without sounding weird? And so you have to kind of gauge the energy. You can't just go in all guns blazing and be like, hi, I'm a dominatrix, are you a sub? You can't do that. And you can't also, overwhelm them, because some people might think, why are you asking me this? How I do it is, if I notice that this guy is somewhat attracted to me and there's enough attraction for me to perceive it. It could be that he's been flirting with me. It could even have started on social media, where he's just, when guys do that thing where they're watching all your stories. But, I wouldn't even consider watching all your stories enough of a thing to assume that the person fancies you, but that's taken into consideration. He's watching all your stories, he's occasionally sending you heart eye emojis, and he's engaging with he's engaging with sexy things that you do, okay? And maybe he starts a conversation with you. Maybe you might link up from having that conversation. It could be that you just, I don't know, go on a date, or you go for a coffee or whatever. In that conversation is when you need to whack them questions out, so if you're wasting your time, or if this is someone that could actually be a very fun possible play partner. And so how I do it is, I might ask questions like, have you ever been with a woman who's powerful before? But I don't ask the question in a way that comes across as corny. It's about picking up on certain body languages and certain interests that they lean towards in what you're saying. So a lot of guys would probably say, yeah, I love a woman who's dominant. Yeah. Because the dominant that they're thinking of is just sexual dominance. And for me, that's like, maybe, I'll be generous and say that's 20% of my interest when it comes to feminine dominance. The remaining 80% is, how are you prepared to bring wonder, excitement, joy, and ease to my life, even if we're not having sex? Because how you can tell if a guy is a pleaser, yeah? It starts with if he's a feeder. Does this guy like to make sure you've eaten? Does he take you to nice places to eat? Even if he's not taking you to fancy places to eat every day, is he someone that makes sure that you're doing okay? Does he have the means to ensure that you're doing okay for yourself? And if he has those means, is he self-directed in the way that he provides and offers his help, his encouragement, his support? Those are the kind of guys that are more likely to be inclined towards the lifestyle of having a goddess in his life. Because I tend to have this statement in my mind often when I'm interacting with men that I fancy, where I'm not your girlfriend, I'm your goddess. There's a difference. I'm not trying to be your girlfriend, especially if the guy is really attractive. I accept that we're both attractive people, so we're not going to stop getting attention from other possibly attractive people. But what I would like is for us to have a dynamic between ourselves where there is a mutual respect, but also you know exactly what I expect from you when it comes to behavior. And you set those precedents from very early on. Like, if a guy is very, very romantic, yeah, then there's a likelihood that he would be, excited by the idea of pleasing you. Okay? And off the back of the statement I was discussing earlier about I'm not your girlfriend, I'm your goddess, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference? And why can't it be both? Well, ideally, it would be both in my case. I would love to also be your goddess while being your girlfriend. But if it's a situation where there's a separation between the two, I would rather be the goddess than be the girlfriend, because I feel like if the guy isn't prepared to do everything that I want, or if he's not even in a place where he can bring me the safety, the ease, the support, the comfort, the convenience that I desire from a guy, I'm not going to just cast him off, especially if he's maybe doing 5 out of 10 of those things. He can be my sexy friend. We're sexy friends, and in this sexy friendship, I'm the goddess, and you bring wonder and gifts and just amazing treatment to this sexy friendship. And you know what? You're probably listening to this and thinking, this sounds unrealistic. Girl, you need to get into the real world where people have problems and men are not going to be putting all their energy into pleasing you. They have their own lives to live. And I agree, which is why it's all about the beginning of the process, which is identifying the people who you know have the means to be in that lifestyle. And the means isn't just financial means. The means is also, does this man have the self-esteem to adore a woman? Because the men who have really low self-esteem, who feel like they lose something when a woman gains confidence, who feel like they need to control the way that you view yourself, are not men you can engage in this kind of play with. Because as you enter this journey of being a goddess and knowing that you want men to be of service to your life in a loving and wholesome and fulfilling way, you will come across a lot of men who posture themselves, okay, as, I'll call them, some of them fake subs, okay? Or you'll come across men who they've never been with a woman who has these kind of desires and they're excited by it, they're curious about it, but they're still holding on to a little bit of that apprehension that makes them want to be overpowering you. Like, it's like the whole topping from the bottom kind of concept, you know? They want you to dominate them, but on their terms. And I hate that. I hate that so much. It's really annoying. And you know how you can often tell the guys who are like that? In my experience, when I've met guys who have approached me and they're like, "Oh my God, you're beautiful. How can I be of service to your life? Oh my gosh." And then you meet them and you have conversations about, you know, their own journey with their sexuality and how they view women. Some of these guys will tell you that they are doms and that they are looking for an experience where they get to, you know, switch over and see what it's like on the other side. Now, the thing is, I am open to men who might be dominant in other areas of their sexual life, and with me they want to experience that switch. However, the guy really has to actually want to be in that position. It can't be a thing where he thinks he can mind bend me into having sex with him where I'm sexually dominating him, but then there is no sort of adoration or, you know, the feeling I want to feel outside of the sexual relationship. That for me is an absolute no. I'm not interested in that. And this is what you got to watch out for. And so you might be wondering, well, this just sounds very, very out there. I don't think my self-esteem as a woman is quite there yet where I feel comfortable with a guy being of service to me. I kind of feel bad. I get it, but this is why you need to work past guilt. And you need to challenge why you feel guilty, because patriarchy has you believing that you will find ultimate purpose in being of service to a man. Don't you think that's why they make us believe that your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life as a woman? We're literally conditioned to spend every day of our lives working towards that one amazing, sacred, golden day where we find the man who is ready to say, "I do," and we live happily ever after. And congratulations, a man chose you and he's chosen to lock you down. You've done it. You've completed the matrix of womanhood. And it's just absolute bullshit. I'm not saying that there aren't people who genuinely, their wedding day was the happiest day of their life. But what I am saying is that doesn't have to be the happiest day of your life. And when you start to challenge that line of thinking, of course, eventually, if you continue to move on that pathway of questioning all the self-limiting beliefs you've been taught about yourself, you'll eventually reach a place where you'll feel comfortable to say, here's how I want to be adored. And if I'm not experiencing it in that way, then I'm not staying. But you don't have to make the extreme leap of going from possibly being a woman who is timid, shy, doesn't know how to advocate for her needs, to suddenly being this woman who has dominatrix-like tendencies and knows exactly what her needs are and knows how to walk away when it doesn't feel right. There is so much growth in between. And the process of separating yourself from that past version of you who didn't know how to advocate for her needs is literally like trying to remove chewing gum from denim. It's not an easy process, but it's worth starting, and it's never too late to start because you just don't know what's on the other side of speaking up for your needs. People like myself who unfortunately were raised in an atmosphere where my needs were not treated as important, and I felt punished for expressing needs, and I had to self-soothe as a child. Obviously adding that I am the firstborn daughter of a Nigerian household. Yes, I am accepting your sympathy in hugs, cash, and kind words because it's hard out here. And if you're a firstborn Nigerian daughter, I rate you and I'm sending you my love. But if you're a firstborn daughter, or if you grew up in a household where you had to self-soothe and unfortunately become independent, you are probably an incredibly hyper-independent adult like myself. And you might think this is so ironic, but learning to speak up for what my needs are when dating men has actually helped me to understand that my needs matter, and it's helped me to be able to speak up more. You find so much self-love in being a woman who stands in her power without apology, because when you are used to putting other people's needs before your own, the idea of being a dominatrix sounds almost disgusting, because that's about you putting your own needs first while being in a collaborative, consensual, and safe dynamic with someone else who is committed and excited about meeting your needs, who is devoted to your happiness, and who derives joy from doing so. There's this misconception, again, that the men who choose to adore these women are just miserable, soulless, they're getting nothing out of it, they're mentally ill. And, you know, all these things are essentially said in order to remove the man's autonomy and make the woman look evil, because what kind of world would it be if a man was to just decide to be nice to a woman, nice enough to enthusiastically bring financial ease and joy and comfort to her life? What kind of world would that be? It sounds like an unrealistic utopia, but it is happening as we speak. It is happening. And you might think, oh, but we're in a recession and people don't really have money anymore, so maybe it's too late for me to even consider embarking on a lifestyle where I'm only making myself available to men who are going to make me feel taken care of. And my rebuttal to that is, as long as there are men making money on this planet, there is money for the taking, okay? This is a disobedient woman speaking to another, hopefully one day, disobedient woman, okay? My goal for you is to explore all the things that you have been taught about yourself that are built to please men. And a lot of these things are not even sexual. A lot of these things are about putting your own needs last. A lot of these things are about looking at other women who know their power and who stand in it as evil. And it's also about challenging the stigmas you've been taught about sex work. I am not saying that you need to do sex work. What I am saying is that you need to humanize sex workers and take a leaf out of their book, because they obviously know something we don't know. If they're able to be getting cash out of men who they're not even sleeping with in some instances, then there is obviously something that they're doing that you can learn from, because this same thing can be applied even in your non-sex work vanilla life with men that you're engaging with. And I know it sounds unrealistic. I know. I too once thought it was unrealistic. I once thought that you had to be a particular kind of attractive in order to even enter the world of what we'd call BDSM. I used to think that if you want to be a woman who a man sees as a goddess, well, then you have to be like, you know, wearing makeup all the time, and you need to be wearing like floaty silk all the time, and you need to talk in one cadence all the time, and you need to, you know, look into his eyes in a seductive manner and clatter your acrylics on the table like this, even though I don't have acrylics, but you get the vision. You know, you need to be this hyper feminized, but also femme fatale character. And I'm telling you, you don't have to do that. You can be someone who is really sweet and funny, sometimes shy, but really witty. And you can still find ways to inject your dominance. And that's what makes it more exciting and hot, because that person falls in love with your personality, but then they also know that there's a side of you that excites them. There's a side of you that just knows herself. And that's really hot to be around, because listen, there's no way you're telling me that if you're around a guy who is confident, who is emotionally intelligent, who just really likes being nice to women, and it's not from those like fake I'm a guy feminist perspectives, but genuinely just action-based support and adoration, you telling me you won't be drawn to him? That's a lie. If you're saying no, that's a lie. That's a lie. Be honest to yourself. You like it, don't you? Yes, and it's okay to like it. It's okay. It's actually okay to want more for your life. It's okay. You don't have to be this person that just accepts what you're given. You don't have to be that woman that just goes for the first guy that gives you attention. The first guy that gives you attention might not even make it 2 weeks down the line. But because you have decided to hyper-focus on his attention, you've made him out to be more of a candidate than he deserves to be. And I don't like that. That's not good. That's not good for you, because in that 2 weeks of assuming that he's meant for you, you've not even given him the chance to earn your trust. And I know some people might argue that, well, you shouldn't have to prove yourself to people. You shouldn't have to earn people's love, and people should just come as they are. And I agree with all those sentiments, but we're talking about men. We're talking about people who will most likely approach you based on the fantasy they've already had in their head of sleeping with you. Okay, this guy has probably already imagined fucking you and is ready to play the long game of pretending to be interested in your feminism. He's prepared to play the long game of saying whatever it is you want to hear, which is why I don't personally trust guys who call themselves feminists, because I've met guys who have treated me incredibly well, and they don't even describe themselves as feminists. They just put their ethics, their ideologies, and their morals into action. They're not pressed about trying to get all the praxis and the ideologies and the words and you know, they're not trying to debate. They're not trying to posture themselves as someone that's done the reading. They've done the living, you know. They've put what they feel into action in the lives of the women that are around them, and that's what I trust more. And what's so fascinating is that, you know, as people who call ourselves feminists, and I call myself a feminist, and some people might argue that some people will be like, what you're doing is not feminism. Okay. Dominating men is not feminism. But I need you to understand, okay, that as feminists, we idealize what it means to stand in our power. We will write tweets about it. We will write books about it. We will write essays about it, but we will never actually do it in actual real life, because that's where the real challenge lies. If you are saying that women deserve to be radically loved, then are you prepared to only make yourself available to a man who loves you radically? Or are you going to just accept whatever and tell yourself that, oh, well, you know, we can only meet men where they are, and, you know, most men aren't as evolved as we are, so you just got to take what you can get. And you're there suffering and staying and just tolerating whatever, because you've told yourself that as a feminist, you need to accept people as they are. And this is where I have problems with, you know, feminism sometimes. It's because it can kind of stunt our own growth as women, and it can sometimes stop us from accessing the love that we really do deserve, because we tell ourselves to feel sorry for men. We tell ourselves that if we ask for too much, then, you know, no one's going to love us. You can't ask for too much, and that guy can only do so much. But it's because you're asking the wrong person, and you are not making yourself available to the men that you know you truly want to be around. Because what happens is, the men that you know you deserve, the work you have to do on yourself to even be in a room with those men, the work you have to do on yourself to be able to hold a conversation with that kind of man and hold his attention, it's way harder than just accepting the guy who just likes you, who, you know, it's probably not going to be a very sustainable relationship and you're probably going to be feeling unhappy and passive, but it's better than not having anyone in your life. That's what's happening. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. And if you leave from listening to this thought stream with anything, I just want you to believe that you are allowed to ask for more. You are allowed to ask men for more, because men are never going to stop asking you for more. They're not going to stop, and you're already going to be conditioned to give it to them. You're going to give them all the emotional nurturing. You're going to give them your money. You're going to give them access to your home. In this recession where they're raising rent, my rent has gone up by £500 a month. Okay? I quite literally cannot afford to be taking in any strays. You understand what I'm saying? If I'm going to be having a man in my life and we're fucking and sucking, there's no way you're not helping me. There's no way. Because you know what? If I'm stressed, if I'm stressed about money, or if I'm stressed about keeping this whole life running by myself as a single woman who is living on her own, I'm not going to feel horny. Okay? And if at all I do feel horny and I decide to do stuff with you, then I'm really just trying to distract myself from my reality. And I don't want that for me. Because what is even better? Do you know what it's like when a beautiful man is in your life and he's treating you well and your worries are no longer worries because he's like, babe, I got you. Do you know what that's like? Do you know what kind of sex you're going to be having with a man who's just making you feel taken care of? And on top of that, he's pleasing you and he's putting you first. It sounds unrealistic, doesn't it? But right now it's happening. Right now, as we speak, somebody is experiencing that. It's not me at the moment. I'm quite close to it. We'll update you on that later. But right now, as we speak, somebody is with a man who loves her, adores her, and is making sure she's taken care of. And it can happen for you. It can happen for you if you want it to happen for you. And you don't have to fall into that idea that you need to be a particular standard of beauty. Because when I've gone to kink events, right, and I mean the kind of kink events that are femme-dom centered, where the women in the room are all goddesses and every single man that's in that room is there to be of service, whether it's, you know, offering foot rubs, being a resting chair for your foot, getting you drinks. You might be walking them around on a leash in the venue. What I have observed from being at these events is that every single woman or femme identifying person in that room looks different to each other. You'll see women who are in wheelchairs. You'll see women who are fat. You'll see women who are really, really, really tall. You'll see women who have like visible scars. You'll see women who they look like the people you walk past every day in Liverpool Street, rushing to get to Shoreditch. Like people whose faces don't stick in your mind because they don't really have a memorable appearance. They're just normal people. And the men you see in that room, similar, just normal people. You don't even know if you've met them in a Tesco somewhere. They're just normal ass people. Of course, a percentage of those men maybe might be the kind that you've heard about who in their day-to-day life, they have this power in their line of work. And then in their sexual life, they're looking to be, you know, overpowered, if you want to call it that, by a woman that they're attracted to. Yes, some of the men in that room, of course, belong to that percentage. But then there's other men in that room who are just normal guys, working class, some guys who are like doing well for themselves. Like you'll find all kinds of men there, the same kind of men you'll meet at bars, the same kind of men you'll meet at the party, the same kind of men you'll meet at carnival, just men, people, right? And in that room, it's so fascinating because every single idea you've had about beauty standards and which women deserve to stand in their power is shattered, because you're seeing women who, ironically, what I've observed ironically is that the women who are very, what you'd call like, I want to say plain, okay? Plain is a very neutral term, just plain looking. They got their whatever kind of BDSM outfit that makes them feel empowered. They're wearing that. and they got men on them. Okay, they're doing their thing. But if that woman was to be, walking through the real vanilla world, she's not someone that you'd imagine to be a goddess. She's not someone that you'd imagine to be the woman that all the men are running around after and asking if she needs her foot rubbed, or asking if, she's just a normal looking woman. Like me and you. I would consider myself quite normal looking, but because I know how to carry myself, it enhances the way my appearance looks. Because you give off an aura. And people can feel that aura. And a guy knows when he's in the presence of a woman who won't let him get away with shit. And it excites them. But to wrap all this up, right? I don't want you to get the impression that I'm saying you need to turn yourself into this powerful woman in order to please men and be this unforgettable goddess in their life. No, what I'm saying is you need to take your own happiness into your own hands and only make yourself available to the men who want to enhance that happiness, because those men are out there and you deserve it. And what a life it would be to hopefully make it to 70 one day, look back on your 20s and your 30s and even your 40s and wish you'd just put yourself first more. I don't want that for me. So I'm using the present and the time I have now and the free will that is at my disposal to create the life I want to see for myself with small baby steps every single day. It's not about leaping into an extreme version of myself that I'm not ready to embody yet. It's about making small decisions every day that allow me to feel like I'm putting myself first. It's about understanding that it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel easy when you are removing men from your life who are not good for you. It's going to feel like, oh man, this guy's attractive and I'm feeling kind of lonely, but he's not quite doing everything I want to do. And I don't like the fact that he's kind of ghosting me and kind of reappearing when he feels like, and we've only known each other for a month. Because how things start is how it's going to go on. And a guy usually starts as he means to go on. So if he knows that he can get away with treating you mediocre, he's going to keep on treating you mediocre because you're going to keep on accepting it. And it's not always a nice feeling to have to just put a full stop where you wanted a comma. Sometimes you really want to just tell yourself that, oh, he's probably just had a long day and that's why he hasn't messaged me, even though he's watching all your stories, like within 5 minutes of you posting them. So he's on his phone. So that means that he doesn't want to contact you because he can. He just doesn't want to contact you. And you have to sit with that reality. And it's a real confrontation of the ego to sit with the reality of this guy probably doesn't want to talk to me. And I have to practice the self-control to not reach out to him, because if I start reaching out to him and a pattern is created where I'm the one who's essentially courting this man, that's how it's going to remain. And I don't want to court a man, so I'm not going to do that. You nip it in the bud before it even sprouts. But also, I think as well, you just don't know when it's going to happen. When you spend all this time walking your power and thinking, man, it's kind of lonely here in these powerful streets. I haven't got as many men in my corner. I'm looking at my friends, and they got a boo or two, and then there's me just standing here in my power in the corner, being happy for everyone. First of all, don't ever envy anybody else because you just don't know what they're tolerating to stay there. And two, oh my goodness, you just don't know when it's going to happen, and you will be ready when it happens because you spent all this time saying no to what you don't want, that when what you do actually want comes your way, you'll be ready for it. You'll be ready for it because you've experienced what it's like to leave before, and you saw that when you left, you didn't die. You've experienced what it's like to eliminate men from the possible roster who have tried to make you feel like a fan for reciprocating their interest. And you have been able to practice the self-control of saying no, even when you're having fanny flutters. That's how you be a dominatrix. It starts with dominating oneself. It starts with having self-control. It starts with being able to accommodate your desires and still tell yourself, well, not now. Not now. because you have not seen what you want to see. Because two things can be true at once, man. You could be this woman who's powerful and who knows her worth, and you could still fancy a guy who isn't really what you want, and he isn't really going to do it the way you want to do it. And that's where you have to practice the self-control, because the self-control is the sifting and vetting process. The self-control is what sets you apart from other women. And the self-control that you have over yourself is what's going to make any guy who is drawn to you really feel pulled in, because he knows that that self-control isn't just any kind of self-control where it's like the fake self-control. This isn't the self-control of, I don't want to sleep with him, so I'm not going to shave. Because if you're someone who is empowered in your body, that's not going to work, because body hair doesn't put men off if they're actually attracted to you. It's not that. I'm talking about the self-control where it's like, if this guy is not meeting the desires and needs that I know I have, and he's within the means to make it happen, I'm just not going to engage with him. Or if this guy just doesn't have the means to meet my needs and desires, maybe he can be my friend. And it could be that things change later down the line for him, and he, later on becomes able to meet those needs. But right now he can't. So I'm not going to date him right now. He could be my friend. He could be my sexy friend. That's honestly how you do it. And it means that, you know what? Being a sexy friend isn't even a bad place to land, man. It's better to be a sexy friend than to just be blocked. Right? But I think I'm going to wrap this up here. I want you to at least understand that this can happen for you if you want it to. And with that, I want to let you know that this is your only life. And you get to decide what happens next in this story. So what are you going to write next?